The U.S. and Panama have struck a deal. It gives American warships priority and free access to the Panama Canal in exchange for security support. American military ships will not pay any fees as required by other nations, and the U.S. and Panama will conduct joint military exercises. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, just back from Panama, detailed the framework during a cabinet meeting this morning, further fueling Trump's assertion that China is secretly in control.
A memorandum of understanding with their security minister for the presence of U.S. troops. Fort Sherman is an old U.S. base there, as well as their naval station and air station, jointly with Panama to secure the Panama Canal from Chinese influence.
This deal raising concerns, among other things, over sovereignty. Joining us live to break down what this all means is King 5 military analyst, retired 4-star Army General Barry McCaffrey. General, so good to see you tonight. Thank you.
Good.
Okay, first, just your reaction to the comments made by Secretary Hegseth today in the Oval Office.
Well, it seems to be another chapter in one-man rule in the United States. You know, I was the U.S. Joint Commander for the Latin American region with headquarters in Panama when the State Department negotiated this treaty. President Carter in 1977, it was ratified by 2/3 of the U.S. Senate. It did give us a right to protect the canal. It did demand expedited passage of U.S. naval warships. You know, the notion that the Chinese were running the canal was sheer nonsense. There was a civilian company running ports at two ends of the canal. There were 7 other contractors, U.S. and Taiwanese, in there. You know, 70% of that traffic, Joyce, going through the Panama Canal comes from or goes to a U.S. port. It's vital to our future. So I think, you know, basically we went down and mugged the Panamanians and apparently are putting some military forces back in there under the notion of joint exercises.
Seattle is home to a very large military community. The entire Northwest is. We didn't hear anything about the number of troops or a timeline. So how might our bases be impacted, if at all? And what would be required by our military to send troops there?
Well, I think what they'll come up with is some exercise program in which periodically small numbers of troops go in. And by the way, the Panamanians don't have an armed forces. So we periodically have conducted security joint exercise in Panama anyway. The only thing that might happen is, I suppose, we might put a semi-permanent base back into the former U.S. Air Force base down there, which probably would be very useful to the Air Force. But in terms of protecting the canal from a Chinese military intervention, that sounds like sheer nonsense. I'm surprised the Panamanians didn't create an uproar over it. There were demonstrations against the Secretary of Defense presence, but I would have thought that would set Latin America afire. I think what we're seeing is Mr. Trump has intimidated not just domestic audiences, but the international community with Greenland, Panama, annexing Canada. It's an astonishing state of affairs.
And it's important to note, I think, that while in Panama, Secretary Hegseth did verbally recognize Panama's sovereignty, but in the written deal where Panama wrote it down, the United States did not put that in the written document. And we know that the president has long been talking about taking back Panama. Do you think there's some hidden agenda there?
Oh, of course. You know, it was a cheap political trick. I personally have never seen that done in serious negotiations. So in Spanish, the joint statement recognized Panamanian sovereignty over the canal, which is there by treaty rights. But in English, he left it out. So I think it's domestic politics showing how tough we are.
Well, another interesting day in Washington, D.C., and especially as we look out over the global landscape. General Barry McCaffrey, thank you again so much for your insight, especially having been a general in that part of the world. We appreciate you.
It'll be a way to join.